everyone, and welcome to Stitch with Creations. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who has supported my doll journey so far. I know 1,743 subs is an odd number, but I really do appreciate every single one of you. I just want to say thank you so much. In the summer of 2021, Vanderall Crafts hosted a Summer Court collab. Famous collabs for each season, and of course I was late to the party. They look really fantastic, don't they? So this is the footage I've rediscovered, and I've spent a couple of weeks trying to piece together how I put stuff together. This is a DC Heroes Supergirl head. I'm not being too keen on the sculpt after this. They all seem to have the same mould and just different skin tones. I wasn't particularly impressed. So jumping right in, this is a 2-part epoxy sculpt. I've put it together and I'm giving her some elf ears because all the participants are elven. I'm trying to follow the shape of the doll's ear and extend it from its human ear. I'm using silicone tools and whatever else fits at the time that I can find to add the creases and the folds that these ears would have. I pop it on some of my husband's electronic helping hands and start on the other side. This way I am less likely to mush the other side. Really, I should have let it dry and done the other one separately. But we live and learn. I let them cure overnight, and I use some Vallejo model colour acrylics to mix a skin tone closest to the skin tone the doll already has, and then paint it. Now I'm impatient, and if you've watched any of my other videos you'll already know this, so I used another DC head and I've got some stretchy jersey fabric and some Mod Podge, and with a silicone tool I'm going to smush it over the top of that in several layers and build it up until it is nice and solid. The glue's dried overnight and is now nice and solid. So I'm going to pop it off this head and I can start trimming off the excess and then measure it up against her proper head and work out where I want her hairline to be. I do this a bit at a time because I don't want to have to make another wig cap because it's a faff, and after this I really realised I don't like making wigs at all. With some more Mod Podge I can start layering up this fancy alpaca fibres from Trigava Fibre. I'll put a link in the description box below. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up to the crown. I'm using my silicone tool again because it saves on paintbrushes, and when the glue dries you can just peel it off and it's nice and easy and clean. I'm making some wefts on a plastic bag, and once they're dry I can use them to make a nice clean parting line. And now we can leave it to dry. To glue a parting line I'm using some fast tack fabric tack, and you stick it on the wrong way to where you want the hair to go so you can fold it back on itself and get a nice crisp parting line. Once it's securely glued, you can start shaping it and using a heat tool to make sure it folds and stays in the right place. For the face up, I've prepped the head with Mr. Super Clear and let that dry, cure, and I'm going to start sketching out some eyes with a light beigey colour. Once the shapes have been roughed out and I'm happy with them, I'll start going in a little bit darker with the same coloured pencil and start building up the various colours to build up the whites of her eyes and the irises. Flipping the head upside down means that you're able to see imperfections, so oddities in the shapes of the eyes if they are looking uneven or a bit skewed. So it's always good to move the head around and look at it from different distances, so close up and far away. Don't get too involved in looking at everything, or you'll make the same mistake I just did. I'll explain that in a minute. I'm getting some pastels and I'm scrubbing them out onto some sandpaper so I can get a nice big pile of dust, so I can blush it onto the face and give the face a little bit more depth and interest. I've gone in around the eye sockets with a slightly darker skin tone and into the creases in her ears to try and give it a layer of depth and give her some cheekbones and some highlights with whites and pinky blushes. So before we get too involved with that one, this is what I ended up with and realised that she has got severe eye wonk. She looks like she's half baked and I don't like it at all, so we're going to wipe it off. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it's happened before. I've done something and I don't like it, and never be too precious about starting again. And you can see how well this stuff holds up against the acetone. It took ages to wipe it off. So while I get over that little strop, let's take a look at these fabrics that I've got. I'm using I think she's a Diana Wonder Woman body, and I'm buffing all the extra panty lines, moulded on bits and pieces, numbers, and oh look, fancy little tools, little tiny files to get right in there. They're really useful because she's going to be wearing a kind of I Dream of Jeannie get-up. Just realised half of you probably won't know who I Dream of Jeannie is, so here's some footage of me sanding off her bum crease. Lovely. I've got a long strip of fabric. I'm going to make some kind of booby-tubey thing, and I have glued down the edges and run out of clips, but I'm trying to keep down the stitching that you can see to a minimum, so gluing it down and holding it down with the big box. I'm going to gather the bit in the middle so that it shapes nicely around her boobs and sew it together. Now I am a creature of chaos, as most of you are probably aware, so this one is done without a pattern, and I really was just eyeballing the whole thing and making up as I go along, as I do with a lot of my costumes, much to some of my friends' disgust. of a jump here. I've trimmed it down, I've sewn it flat and glued down the edges. Move the bottom out of the way. So this will be wrapped around her body, and I will put a fastener at the back. Once the glue's dried, I'll be putting some press studs on to keep it closed. Taffeta's quite a bulky material, so I've got my hair straighteners out to try and smush the folds and make it sit better, and keep the fine creasing pleating in so it looks nice and shapely. I've just realised those two bits of footage are back to front. That's the problem with the footage that's saved on an old SD card that you've lost for a couple of years. Oops. And a leap forward in time, I've put the clasp on, it's done up together, and to cover up the stitching I've put a sash on at the back. And I'm guessing from the shine on her face we were having quite a humid day. That sucked. Harem pants, I'm using some pink chiffon, and using a tip that I have kind of bodged from Dolly Mixtures, I'm using a soldering iron to seal the edges. Now, again, not the safest way to do it. I've got it wedged in the soldering iron holder, and I'm just running the fabric across the tip of it. Probably not the safest way to do it, but the fabric was going all over the place, and I didn't have a board that was going to withstand the heat of the soldering iron. The trousers are pretty simple. They are two massive squares gathered at the top, and I've cut a little sort of crotch seam into it, and then I just do the legs up, and at the bottom roll them over and put some more elastic through the ankle. I've put the soldering iron away, so I'm getting the frayed check out because I can't be bothered to go and dig it out of the husband's electronics pile again. Using DG Requiem's bikini pattern, I'm making some pants because I've realised those trousers were awfully see-through, and you don't go to a party with your bits hanging out. And if you do, that's no judgment on you. Enjoy. I couldn't decide the best way to sew them up, so I glued them because, again, I didn't want any stitching showing. But my error, these aren't stretchy fabric, so I've had to make a clasp on the side, and she gets press studded into these very uncomfortable looking knickers. Okay, so back to the face again. Sorry about that. Face up number 2. We've got a layer of MSC. We are putting some pink blush on and on her nose, dusting off with a nice big fan brush, and then I'm doing some highlights with a white. I'm using a brighter blush now to give her a bit more of a sun-kissed look. It is a summer ball after all, and the way she's dressed, it looks like she's come from some kind of desert oasis. I sketched some eyes in off camera because I didn't want to make the same mistake again and having her with the super wonk. So we've sketched those in already, and now I'm just deepening the shadows on her face with a beigey skin tone and building up her eyebrows, which are a white going into pink to match her hair. Now I've got the basics down, I can start building up the pigment. I'm just going to keep going over and over with the various colours to try and build up different layers of colour and deepen that colour. That's a lot of colour. Colour, 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 colour. Her eyebrows are going to look really washed out unless I give them a bit of definition, so I'm using a charcoaly colour to put some shadows in underneath each of the eyebrow hair strokes, just to try and make them look a little bit more realistic and give them some depth and dimension. I often save the darker colours until after I've drawn the other lines in, because I want to make sure that I am truly happy. It's harder to rub back the darker colours. So I've got some pan pastels here. I'm going to give her some serious smoky eye makeup. Went a little too serious with the smoky eye, so we're just going to blend it in a little bit with a cotton bud. Happy with the blush and the shadow, I can now start giving her some definition with some black pencil on her eyelids and her eyelashes. And then we give her a final seal of MSC to seal her in. I've got some nail caviar and some jump rings, and I'm sticking them to her ears to give her some fancy ear piercings. With some knickers that look almost like a nappy and her booby tubey done, I'm just going to put some elastic through her harem trousers. To measure the elastic, I wrap it around her waist so it's a comfortable size, making sure there is enough stretch to go over her hips and her little bottom. It was a faff trying to get the elastic in, so I did all of that off camera to save you the heartache. Now let's do an outfit test. Cram her into those knickers. Yep, no, definitely need the press stud. Put those up, clip this together. Yes, very good. And then we can put those nice baggy pants on her. I can imagine those being quite nice and airy in the summer. And then we can clip on her little bralette. Now, this is where I decided it all looked very plain, very simple, and we needed to chuck some bling, 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 bling all over it. Raiding my jewellery making stash, I've got all the gold chains I can find and all the pretty beads that I think would look right, and I'm going to try and find a way to drape them around her and around her outfit to pull it all together. I've put a giant jump ring through the cleavage of her bralette, and I'm looping all of the different chains. They've got different shapes and sizes and textures across her body, and using that as an anchor point. Using other jump rings, I'm trying to lace it all together so that it drapes nicely across her body and holds its place. I don't often plan out my dolls, and I certainly didn't plan this one, so I've just really done it all by eye and what felt right. I've got a nice skinny chain here that I've wrapped and looped around her neck many times, so it looks like she's wearing many different types of necklaces. I'm gluing on a nail art rhinestone here to add to the centre of her bralette and make it all sparkly and shiny. Some time ago, Catherine from Vandella Craft sent me a box of goodies. We did a bit of an exchange, and she sent me that staff, which I thought would be perfect. I've got some jewellery wire here, and I've looped on various types of beads to make some kind of interesting, they look like little potion bottles or perfume bottles hanging off her belt. I've looped the jewellery wire round into a loop and added another jump ring through and added that to the chain. The glue wasn't helping to hold the wig in place, so once I've sort of mushed it around and styled it to where I want it to go, I decided to just stab it in the head with a pin, because that was the only thing I could get to hold it in place. And before I discovered resin, I was using Liquitex gloss varnish to add some shines to her eyes and her lips. So I was happy with how everything had turned out and how it had gone together. So let's have a look at how she turned out. So what do you think? I really love the colour scheme and the flow of all of her costume, her hair and the drapery of the chains. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I look forward to reading all of your comments in the box below. Thank you for watching.